Okay, calling to order the May 9th, 2022 council meeting. Jenny, will you please call roll? Oh, Jenny's not here. You're coming.
Ms. Cram? Here. Ms. Aludo? Mayor Fox?
Here.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Here.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Here.
Mr. Keeler?
Here.
I move to adjourn to executive session for the purposes of personnel matters, considering the employment of a public employee, conferencing with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject of pending or imminent court action, and considering the purchase and disposal of property for public purposes. Is there a second? Thank you. Jenny, please call roll.
Ms. Aludo? Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. We are reconvening the May 9th, 2022 council meeting. Councilman Keeler, would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, this evening we have some special presentations. We have some wrestling champions in the room, and I would like to invite forward Ty Wilson. Hi, Ty. This is quite impressive, I have to say. This is quite impressive. Come right over here so everybody can see you. So we have a proclamation for you because of your achievements. We're really proud of you. We want to let everybody in the city know about what you've done in your wrestling career here. So this proclamation says, whereas on March 13th, 2022, Dublin-Scioto High School sophomore Ty Wilson won the second Ohio High School Athletic Association Division I State Wrestling Championship, and whereas as a freshman wrestler, he won in the 113-pound weight class, and this year he moved up 3 weight classes. This is a lot of hamburgers, right? To win the title in the 132-pound division, and whereas for the second year in a row, Ty beat the second, third, and fourth place finishers in the state tournament. And whereas during the summer of 2021, he was the 138-pound freestyle and Greco state champion. And whereas this year, Ty took 5th place at the prestigious Walsh Ironman tournament. And whereas during his sophomore season, he won 53 of 57 matches and was only taken down in his state finals match. And whereas throughout his 2 years in high school, Ty has maintained his status on the honor roll, which is even more important, while capturing another state crown. Now, therefore, I, Jane Fox, Mayor of the City of Dublin, on behalf of this entire City Council, do hereby proclaim Friday, May 13th, 2022, as Ty Wilson Day. In the City of Dublin, and extend our congratulations to you, Ty, in honor of this recognition at Dublin-Scioto High School's first-time Ohio State High School Wrestling Champion. Congratulations. Really impressive. Would you like to say something? No? No. This is for you. Do you want to get a picture? No, no. I know. I mean, oh my goodness. Congratulations. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. And we have another wrestling champion as well. I'd like to call up, let me see, Omar Ayub. Did I pronounce that correctly? You also have quite a record here, so I think we're getting ready to brag on you. Ready? Okay. Whereas Dublin Kaufman High School sophomore Omar Ayub won the 2022 Ohio High School Athletic Association Division I State Wrestling Championship in the 126-pound weight class on March 13th. And whereas to capture the state title, he defeated Pickerington Central High School senior Brennan Cernas, a Navy commit who is ranked as the number 10 wrestler in the nation for his weight class. And whereas this season, Omar sustained a torn LCL and was off the mat for 2 months before coming back a few weeks prior to the state tournament and going undefeated in his matches from there on out. And whereas Omar started wrestling at the age of 7. Oh, do you have siblings? Yeah. Uh-oh. Becoming an elementary state champion, placing 6 times in state tournaments and receiving All-American honors in several national level tournaments prior to high school. And whereas in his freshman year at Kaufman, he had a perfect 34-0 record going into the state championships, where he advanced to the final round to face Dublin Sciotos Ty Wilson, and who was the eventual champion. And whereas last summer, Omar placed 5th at the Super 32 Challenge in North Carolina and was ranked the number 7 wrestler in the country in the 120-pound weight class by Flow Wrestling. And whereas Omar has set a goal to win 2 more state titles and intends to wrestle in college. That's amazing. You're amazing. Now, therefore, I, Jane Fox, Mayor of the City of Dublin, on behalf of this entire Dublin City Council, do hereby proclaim Saturday, May 14th as Omar Ayub Day in the City of Dublin, and we extend our congratulations to you in honor of the recognition as an Ohio State high school wrestling champion. Congratulations. That's amazing. And you got through that injury. That's fabulous. Would you like to say a few words?
I'd like to thank my dad first for always being there with me and pushing me, and then my mom, and I'd like to thank my coaches too. And I'm ready for 2 more.
I know you'll do it. I know you will. You must have a lot of determination, right? Would you like to hold that and get your picture? Congratulations. All right, before we go on, I just want to make public that we have a councilman. Councilman Cram is joining us virtually online due to COVID quarantine. So just wanted to let people know why we might have a virtual attendant. This evening, we have a citizens' comments portion, and it's an opportunity for citizens to comment on any topic that is not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone present who wishes to make a comment or have any comments been received? I think there is one, yes. Which, if you would come forward, state your name and address, please. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alexander Harridge, and I live at 5004 Galway Drive, which is, just up the street. So the topic that I wanted to bring before council tonight is the sustainability plan for the city, and just to kind of get an update and make sure that that plan is still in place and in motion. So I'm a 21-year-old college student. I go to The Ohio State University. I've been a resident of Dublin, Ohio for 16 years now. And I'm very passionate about the planet that we live in. And I want to see Dublin become a leader in sustainability and push for those initiatives. I want Dublin to be a place that takes environmental matters seriously and is proactively working to address them, and a place I can be proud to call my hometown. And I'm not alone. There's a Pew Research poll from 2021 that shows that the majority of US adults think that climate change and addressing it should be a top priority. And if you break that down by generation, the younger generations are even more likely to think that it's a high priority. And it starts by completing the plan that's already in place. So there is a 2018 through 2020 sustainability framework that the city's put out there. And so far, 15 of the 35 stated goals have been completed to entirety. And I would like to press the city to continue to work on the remaining goals, specifically around public engagement and developing a web page for sustainability is a major area that I see a lack on the website in terms of getting information to the public about what the city is currently doing about sustainability and how citizens can participate in that. I'd also ask that the city reinstate the sustainability advisory team, which I believe was basically ended at the end of last year. And if that's not already a plan, I would ask that that be brought back. And lastly, I would ask that the city continue to work with MORPC to develop the another framework, the next version of the framework, to continue working on those sustainability goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. And I know the city takes sustainability very seriously, and we're working hard towards it, and we really appreciate the fact that you have taken such a great interest in it. And I'm sure that if you have further questions about what the city's doing, staff would be more than happy to answer some of the things that we're doing and maybe some of the new things that we have planned. And certainly we would welcome your participation in that, in your engagement. Thank you very much.
We would be able to help with that.
Dana, what staff member would you suggest?
Yeah, I would ask Matt Ehrman if he'd be willing to maybe get in contact. And we certainly welcome any ideas you have as we work down that road. Thank you.
Thank you again. Yes, Christina? Thank you. The consent agenda is the next item. Maybe I just better double check. Lindsay, do we have any other comments? All right, thank you. Is there a request to remove any item from the consent agenda this evening? Hearing none, I will move to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Jenny, will you please call roll?
Mr. Keeler,
Yes.
Mr. Reiner,
Yes.
Ms. Saludo, Ms. Cram, Mayor Fox,
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa,
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms.
Yes.
Second reading, our public hearing ordinance, ordinance 16-22.
Amending Ordinance 8421, adjusting the ward boundaries of the City of Dublin as required by Article 9.04 of the revised charter.
Our staff report this evening is from Assistant City Manager Homer Rogers. Welcome, Homer.
Good evening, members of council. There have been no changes to Ordinance 1622 since the first reading, so subject to your questions, staff recommends approval at this time.
Thank you. Are there any public comments concerning this ordinance? All right, council, do you have any questions for Homer? None? All right, Jenny, will you please call roll?
Ms. Cram,
Yes.
Mr. Reiner,
Yes.
Mr. Keeler,
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms,
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa,
Yes.
Mayor Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Saludo.
Ordinance 17-22.
Petitioning the Board of County Commissioners of Union County, Ohio to adjust the boundary lines of Jerome Township so as to exclude that territory that, as a result of annexation, now lies within the corporate boundaries of the City of Dublin. Roger Warren Gordon, trustee of the Roger Warren Gordon Living Trust, and Denise Ann Gordon, trustee of the Denise Ann Gordon Living Trust, annexation of 44 acres, Ordinance 8717.
Our staff report this evening is Jennifer Radler, our law director. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Good evening, members of council. There have been no changes to the ordinance, and staff continues to recommend approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments? Council, do we have any questions or discussion on this ordinance? Hearing none. Jenny, will you please call roll?
Ms. Saludo? Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor DeRosa.
Yes.
Ordinance 18-22.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a real estate purchase agreement for certain property owned by the Orr Family LP in Franklin County, Ohio, authorizing the execution of related agreements and documents and appropriating funds therefor.
Once again, Jennifer Radler has our staff report.
Thank you, Mayor Fox. Again, there have been no changes to this ordinance since first reading, and staff continues to recommend approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Public comments concerning this? Questions from council or discussion on this? Hearing none. Jenny, will you please call roll?
Vice Mayor DeRosa,
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms,
Yes.
Ms. Cram,
Yes.
Mr. Reiner,
Yes.
Mr. Keeler,
Yes.
Ms. Saludo, Mayor Fox.
Yes. Introduction, first reading, and public hearing on ordinance 19-22.
amending the annual appropriations ordinance for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2022.
Thank you. Our staff report this evening is from our Finance Director, Matt Stifler. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of council. The memo associated with this ordinance explains the expenditures in more detail, but I wanted to provide a brief financial overview before you discuss this ordinance. So regarding income tax collections, you'll see this graph when the April monthly financial report comes out, and there isn't really a better statistic you can see as the finance director of this city at this point. Income tax revenues are up almost 23% for the year. This is not unique to Dublin. I pulled down some stats. Ohio's fiscal status, tax revenue across Ohio is running up, according to OBM, $2.45 billion for the state of Ohio, or 12%. April was an exceptionally large month for the state of Ohio, bringing in $3.3 billion, or 46% above OBM's state estimate. So this is a statewide statistic, and all of the state of Ohio is seeing very good income tax revenue at this point. I would expect our income tax to recede slightly. We have some timing issues that are part of this, so I expect some pullback in May, but not 23% worth. So we are well ahead of our last year total, which was $101 million, and even farther ahead of our budget, which is set at $94 million. We expect to have a better handle on maybe increasing the budget number for this year, probably mid-June. There are a couple of items that we're waiting to come in May, and one in the beginning of June. Once those items clear our tax office, I think we'll be prepared to talk about a revised budget number. Regarding the hotel motel fund, since a large part of this ordinance actually deals with that fund, you can see this bar graph details the monthly revenue. There's a seasonality, as you would expect to hotel motel funds. This graph clearly shows that seasonality and the importance of summer. The dark bar on there represents 2022, and year-to-date actual revenues of lodging taxes are 75% of their 2019 actuals, 2019 obviously being the highest year of hotel motel taxes. We budgeted 60% of 2019 actuals, so we're coming well ahead of budget in that area. A lot of the increase in expenditures that are in this ordinance are intended to be offset by increases in revenues, particularly increases in admission and ticket prices, which you have seen in this memo and others. And then finally, regarding the general fund balance, the balance is currently $65.8 million, which is 74.7% of budget, and $21 million in excess of our reserve requirements. And as you can see on Exhibit A of this ordinance, all of the funds that have expenditures in this ordinance are well funded to make these appropriations and still have a significant amount of fund balance remaining. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
All right, do we have any public comment? All right, questions for Matt? Discussion? None? All right. You have a question? Okay.
We are seeing it in the fuel line. I'm definitely seeing it there. We're watching it closely to make sure that we're going to be well covered in that area, but we are definitely seeing it in that line. I can't say that I've heard any conversations of the other utility lines, but now that you mention it, I'm probably going to look.
Well, it's good news that you brought forward tonight. That's a good thing. We have such a good increase in our revenues. Hopefully that'll cross our fingers and keep on going, right? All right, if there's no further questions or discussion, we will have our second reading. Public hearing is scheduled for the May 23rd meeting. Thank you, Matt. Introduction, public hearing, Resolution 21-22.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with artist Elon Averbach for the design, construction, and installation of the boat in the field located at ML Red Tribune Nature Preserve.
Thank you. Our staff report is from our Director of Parks and Recreation, Matt Ehrman. Welcome, Matt.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. You'll recall in 2021, City Council selected the site for this new Art in Public Places project. to be located at ML Red Trayview Nature Preserve as depicted on the map on the screen. In early 2022, the Public Art Review Committee selected Elon Everbuck out of 3 finalists for the Artwork Commission. At the March 21st council meeting, $150,000 from the Hotel Motel Tax Fund was appropriated to fund this project, and Resolution 2122 authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Mr. Everbuck for the remaining design, construction, and installation of this artwork. Therefore, staff is recommending approval, and we have representatives from the Dublin Arts Council here present this evening, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Do we have any comments or public comments?
I'm looking forward to seeing the boat in the field.
Would you like to step to the podium and tell us about that? That's fine. You're allowed to. If you'll just give us your name and your address, we'd love to hear what you have to say. Not sure, is your microphone on? Want to make sure you're on.
Now turned it off? Oh, thanks. Alvey Smith, 9023 Portofino Place, Alvey. And I ride by this location. I saw the article in the Dublin Magazine, I think, about it, and it's like, oh, that'd be great. And I go by that path hopefully 3 or 4 times a week in the summer. So I like all the public art Dublin does. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. I'm sure the Arts Council appreciates that comment. Are there any others? Oh, Council? All right, Kathy?
I just had a quick question, Matt. So around this, are there going to be other benches, any sort of pavement work or anything, or is just the artwork piece there on that corner?
This contract only includes the artwork itself. It doesn't mean we couldn't go back and install benches at a later date.
Okay, I just wondered if we had a plan to do that.
We do not have a plan as of yet. I think once the art is actually substantially complete, we can put that plan together pretty easily.
Great, great. Thank you.
No other comments? I would like to ask a question. And this came through a little bit through some emails of the folks that walk this park. And I noticed in the scope of, in the contract, that the area around this would be cleared, yet there's grassy areas behind it. What's the intention of maintaining this natural environment around this, and how much will be cleared and how much will be grassy area?
Basically, what you see in the rendering here is very similar to what the end result will be. There will be some natural areas behind the structure, but allowing people to actually go up near the structure in the front of it, it will be maintained.
All right, thank you. That answered my question. Let's see. Jenny, will you please call roll?
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Resolution 22-22.
Adopting the City of Dublin's goals for 2022-2023.
Thank you. Our staff report is Homer Rogers.
Well, good evening again, members of council. As directed during the council workshop on April 18th, staff is bringing forward Resolution 22-22, adopting city council goals for 2022-2023, and the council retreat report for 2022. Subject to questions, staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public? None. Council, are there any questions or discussions about council goals? Looks like we're pretty well set on them. All right. So we did a lot of time talking about these. I think we've got some exciting things going forward, and we're ready to call roll.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo? Yes. Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
And Mayor Fox?
Yes. Our other business this evening is building use policy for our council chamber building, and our staff report is our clerk of council, Jenny Delgado.
Thank you very much. The policy before you tonight came before the Administrative Committee on October 5th, and then all of council at a work session on October 18th of last year. Consensus was reached at that work session with the addition of special permit language regarding alcohol in the space, and one follow-up item, which was council had directed me to look into deposits or securing some sort of credit card before making a reservation. I discussed this follow-up item with the Director of Finance. I learned that the city has eliminated the collection of deposits for the rental of city facilities at the rec center due to the high costs associated of administering those deposits. So the draft policy before you does have language noting the responsibility of the parties for any damages, and we would ask for a signature acknowledging that statement. So I bring this back before you tonight for adoption.
Thank you, Jenny. Do we have any comments on this, Lindsay? None? Do we have any questions for Jenny? Council? No? Jenny, I have one question, and it's simply about the hours reserved between 5 and 9 p.m. So I'm just going to like beta test a question on this. If we have an HOA group that wants to come here and talk, will there be a charge for, say, the community room after 5 o'clock, because many of those do occur after 5 o'clock?
We would just have to figure out staff-wise entry into the building, who's going to be here for the meeting. So it's likely to include some staff hours. So possibly a charge for that.
I think this is one of those things because the building is so new, it's hard to know how it will be used, when it will be used, and who will use it, right?
Right.
So the public should know that this is our opportunity to begin a policy that could be fluid, and that we're just going to test it out, right?
Right, and any requests that I have been given, I usually pass along to council for your feedback anyway, so.
All right, thank you. Will you please call roll, Jenny?
Need a motion?
Have that, okay. Thank you.
Accept the council chamber building public space usage policy.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Now will you please call roll?
Ms. Amrose Grooms?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo? Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
The next item on our agenda is our Beautify Your Neighborhood grants, and our staff report is our city planner, Taylor Mullinax. Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council, and good evening. Tonight, I'll be presenting a summary of the spring 2022 Beautify Your Neighborhood grant applications. The city received 6 complete applications for the spring round. Total available funding for 2022 is $32,000, with a $5,000 maximum permitted per application. For the 6 neighborhoods, the funding requests total $25,215, and a remainder of $6,785 is available for fall Beautify Your Neighborhood grant applicants this year. On April 18th, the CDC reviewed and expressed support for the proposed enhancements for the neighborhoods. At the meeting, staff provided clarifying information to the committee regarding their questions. The Community Development Committee and Planning are recommending approval of the 6 grant application requests to City Council. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And the applicants are in attendance this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comments? Do we have any comments from any of our applicants that would like to speak? All right. Council, do we have any questions or discussions concerning the neighborhood grants? No. All right, so is there a motion to approve the grant awards as recommended by the Community Development Committee?
So moved.
Thank you. A second, please. Thank you. Jenny, will you please call roll?
Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Amrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Oh, now the exciting part and the fun part, Independence Day event admission prices. but it's all about the event, not the admission prize.
Well,
And our
good
staff
evening,
report
members
is
of council.
Allison Leroy. Welcome.
Good evening. Unfortunately, I do not have a band announcement tonight. We are still working on that. I had hoped to have it tonight, but anyway, I'm still bringing to you tonight the cost of the tables. As Mr. Stifler mentioned before in his ordinance, obviously, we've seen the cost of everything go up. One of the things we have seen it in the bands, and the gas is one of the big things they keep talking about to get things shipped here. So similar, we changed the prices for Irish Festival in early January because we kind of knew that was coming then. So we're bringing this to you tonight to discuss the ticket prices for Independence Day. So even though we do not have a band confirmed at this point, we know where the prices are kind of falling right now. So we're confident that this same pricing structure is going to help us reach that goal. We've always had a cost recovery around 25%. And so with the things we're doing here, we would meet that goal. Some of the things we did, if you remember last year at the Independence Day celebration, we went to tables of 8, which we heard great feedback from. They were much more comfortable in the space. I think, in the past, maybe we had some overcrowding feelings. So I think people were really comfortable with the tables of 8. So we've stuck to that. And we're really pushing the online sales as well. Similar to Irish Festival, where there's a significant discount. With Irish Festival, it's $5 discount if you buy it online. We're having a discount of $5 here if you buy it online, because we really want to push people to get those tickets before they show up. It helps staff tremendously to not have to deal with that cash and everything on site. So that's one of the changes we've made as well. We also have an online process for the table sales, so no longer will people be waiting outside at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. to get their tables. We tried it last year, and staff came up with some really innovative ideas, because what I kept pushing is so many neighborhoods like to sit together, or so many friends like to sit together. So the process is going to be you register, and then you get your, I keep calling the boarding group because it's kind of like Southwest Airlines. So you're in boarding group A. So then you have a period of time where you can buy those tables, but there's a limited number of people buying those tables at the same time. So you can call your friend or sit there on the computer at the same time and say, okay, let's go for row F and 9 and 10. So that was really important, I think, because there's so much tradition that goes around this event that I couldn't see just throwing it out there and saying, buy whatever table and end up wherever you are. So I think that's been really a great system that we've worked out for the table sales. So we are recommending a change in the cost and the process for those table sales, and I can answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Do we have any comments concerning this? No? Council comments or discussion concerning this? Kathy? Oh, Andy?
The prices just seem low to me. Had there been discussion in comparing with the picnic with the Pops and the Yazoo? Had there been any discussion of charging a little more for a table?
Yeah, and actually, if you look, the last time we changed was in 2019, and at that point, we went to a $150 table at council's direction. We had actually asked at that time to, we had asked for 200, and we had council direction to keep it at 150 that year. So I think it just goes back in history that past councils have wanted to keep it an affordable event.
Affordable is clearly a relative term. I mean, given the cost of the restrooms and everything else, I'd be open to increasing it a bit.
Councilman DeRosa, did you want to make a comment?
Wasn't related to that, but I was wondering on the wristband sales. You had talked about how you're doing electronic purchasing for the tables. I know a few years back, it would be silly to think about doing online sales for very small amounts of money. That just was not something that happened, but now it sort of does. I couldn't tell, is that what's planned here, or is there some thinking about this versus?
Yeah, that would be electronic, but they'll also have an option. I turned myself off. That is an option. They can buy them online, but they can also go into the rec center. They'll be able to buy them online. The whole thing is the residency checks. So that's what makes it a little different. We are lucky now that the rec track system that the rec center uses, they have a new way of tracking residency. So one of the things we're going to ask people to do, a lot of people have already done it, but you can actually go online into rec track, and there's a little thing, we're going to have very clear instructions that says resident, not resident, or I forget, if they haven't proven, there's an unknown or something. And you can actually upload a bill or some kind of proof of residency. So this is the first time they've had that system like that. So it's going to help us do a lot more online of a lot of things that we've never been able to do.
Yeah, I think that would be nice if we, thank you for your work on that, because I know for some people to go pick them up, et cetera, so forth, and then I think that'll be a very nice thing. I will comment on Mr. Keeler's point. It's at 150 today. I don't know about 200. I mean, with the cost, I think it's reasonable to say we could, you know, what is it, 10% would be another $15. I mean, I think it's reasonable given what the prices have come up to move that. And then again, if we see something different happen next year and it goes the other way, I mean, that doesn't seem unreasonable to me to move that up 10% or something.
Councilman Aludo?
So Allison, the kids area wristbands, are those still going to be an on-site person?
Yeah, we're debating if we can figure out how to do that one online. It's more, we've actually discussed it, and I think we'll probably be able to do it. We just weren't ready to say we have the capability to do that here. But we will, in the past, we haven't been able to take credit cards always. So we will definitely be able to take credit cards for those.
Yeah, because I'd love to see a discount for people who purchase these online.
Oh.
To me, that would make some sense and encourage people to do it online and think through their plans ahead of time. Thanks.
All right, any other comments? Great work. Looking forward to the 4th of July. Is there a motion to approve the new prices as we've discussed? Oh, is there? We have a question.
Well, I just didn't know if there was going to be any movement on the table or not. I wasn't quite clear.
Oh, you mean changing it from, I misunderstood. Are we leaving it at 200? Is that what we've going on?
It's at 150 now, right?
For 200.
Yeah, it was 150 in 2019, and so we're recommending the 200 for this year.
All right. Are we good with that?
Yes.
Do we have consensus on that?
Yeah, can I just add that if you're
Yeah, we can do that.
So right now, well, my understanding is we are at $200 for the table, and Allison will be bringing back information about the wristbands, so about the discounted wristbands online for the kids area, correct? All right. So do I have a motion to approve the new prices that we've discussed?
So moved.
All right, may I have a second? Thank you. Jenny, will you please call roll?
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
All right, another event, holiday markets, and our staff report is back to Allison.
It's weird to go from 4th of July to Christmas, but I guess that's where we are. So the Public Service Committee met last month and discussed, it was actually referred to the committee from council, and we discussed the holiday markets. And one of the things that came out of that committee, I think there was some consensus that staff would continue to do the feasibility study, and we felt like we could do that in-house. Some of the reasons were included in the memos, but mainly we felt that we probably had a better idea of what would work in our city. And if we do get to a certain point that we might find somebody who's the expert on Christmas markets, we might go out and possibly look at hiring somebody like that to help us maybe find some vendors, but we feel like staff at this point can continue the research and keep us moving on that. But then the next question that we really had a lot of discussion about at the committee meeting was the need to go overseas to go see some of these Christmas markets in December of this year. And that's what we wanted to bring back to council to have that discussion and see what the thoughts of all of council were on that one.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments, Lindsay? No. Council, some discussion on this and the question that Allison had about traveling. Kathy?
I'm happy to. Thank you, and thank you, Allison. And I thank everybody for the conversations that we've had back and forth on this. As Allison mentioned at the public service meeting, we talked a fair bit about how to go about doing a feasibility and a discussion, and the conversation around actually traveling to see these particular festivals. I think one of the things that's important, and on my perspective as having brought this forward, is that it has been sort of the history of this council to go out and look at really, I'm going to call them state of the world or maybe state of the globe, different approaches. For the reality is the top 250 or maybe the top 500 exist outside the United States. So one of the challenges is, yes, there are local markets where we could go visit and perhaps learn things from, and we should do those things as they make sense. But if we're really going to do a feasibility study, I think it's very important to go to the source, go to the place where the holiday markets and the Christmas markets have originated, so that we can learn what we want to do in a feasibility study. It's a bit of a chicken and the egg in that regard. Tonight in our council goals, goal number 4 of our approved council's goals this evening was to develop Dublin's destination of choice, next generation community events vision. And I think, you know, timing is an important part of this, and I think the timing is right to really proceed and look at this as part of that. We know in terms of our bed tax, et cetera, so forth, that this time of year it's particularly important to provide some vitality and find ways for community engagement. So it is my perspective that in order to do a fair feasibility study, I think we're going to have to take a trip to staff and council, those that are interested, to where these particular festivals of origin, and that just happens to be, in this instance, outside the United States. Thank you.
Other comments? Andy?
I would echo Kathy's comments. You know, we, a couple years ago, engaged a futurist, and a good bit of the stories that he was sharing were things that were happening in other countries. It's been a while since I think council has visited countries abroad, and I think we can pitch a couple tents and have a fake snow machine, but that's not our style. And if we want to think big, we need to see how some of these folks are doing this abroad. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I would concur with you. I think not only should we take an interest in this particular venue, but there's lots of other things to see related to performing arts centers and other things that we're interested in developing, art museums, whatever, that can consume the day, and then in the evenings we can go out and try to visit and absorb. You know, this really speeds up the process too, because you can literally take a measuring tape and measure the exhibits and see how much square footage is needed for each kind of one of these things. I mean, it just really saves you a lot of guessing around, and you know, so I do agree that I think, you know, our last couple trips out of Ohio were very fruitful. We ended up with the Bridge Street Bridge connecting two parts of our city. So I think there's a lot to be learned by getting on the road. So I think you're right on, Kathy. Thank you.
We have any other comments? All right.
I would be in favor of us looking, you know, when we started the Irish Festival and things, I think we started to see what we were capable of, right? And see what the level of community interest is. And I'm not that I'm not supportive of council traveling abroad. That's certainly not the case, but I think it would be important to introduce this to the community and to gauge their level of reception to it and what level of interest there might be. You know, we've never really set out to copy somebody else, but I think it might be appropriate for us to look nearby and see what, you know, I think in the staff report it mentioned a couple communities that were participating in this, and I think to get started, that's a really good place to go and see what it is that our community desires and what we might be capable to execute, and to start building it organically. To just try to transplant something in holistically from somewhere else, that's not really our style. So I would be supportive of looking domestically of what's being done and start to cultivate that in our community and see what where the interest lies, and hopefully get some buy-in from the community. You know, what the Irish Festival, and still largely is put on, is a volunteer-led, although the city spends quite a bit of money on it, but it is uniquely us, and it has traveled a journey that made it very uniquely us. So that's the route I would be supportive for us to take.
You know, I think that there are many examples of these winter markets, and we have them domestically, and you're right. I think that there are some good examples, and some nearby and some far away. I know there's some in Indiana, there's some in North Carolina. I think they probably all originated from the European markets, though. And the one thing that I'm looking forward to is we are known to put on some fantastic events. And I think domestically, we would like to be the best of the best. So I'd like to see the original best of the best in Germany or wherever these come from. I do think that there's great opportunity to gain some community engagement. We have SurveyMonkey, we have all kinds of things that we can do to get some ideas. I know in the few people that I've mentioned this to, it was quite well received, very excited. Nowhere else in Central Ohio, I think, is there anything like this. It checks boxes for me because, one, it meets one of our council goals to have a really unique event. I also think that in hearing from Scott Dring, the very reduced time that we get people heads in beds is during this November, December. And I did read recently, and I know that the new zoo director is looking for ways to increase more traffic up to the zoo during that time of year. So, I mean, we're right on the roadway, and the lights and all the color and the smells and all the things of the holidays could just really add as a partnership there. So I believe that maybe doing some opportunities to do some domestic, but I absolutely think that we need to go international to see the originals. So, Andy? Amy? All right. She'll pop in if she has a comment. And I think she's still with us. She's still with us, isn't she?
Yeah, can you hear me?
All right. Okay. If you would like to say anything, please do. And if not, we'll move on.
I would just say that I agree 100% with what Ms. Groom said. I believe that we should poll our citizens and see what they are interested in. Start small, look local, and wait on any trip overseas.
Thank you. Well, I know that you have some questions that you want answered, Allison, so I think we'll poll here the committee, the council. So in doing the in-depth feasibility study, do I have a consensus on having it completed by city staff versus a third party? All right. And then secondly, does the committee support a domestic, well, let's do this, a domestic trip to see the, it's an and or, so I'm going to ask two. I'm going to ask about a domestic trip and an international trip. So I'm going to ask first about domestic. Do you support visiting domestic winter markets? Yes. All right. Secondly, do you support visiting an international winter market?
No.
Yes.
I would pause on that. My personal preference would be like, we're gonna have plenty of time to have this conversation once the staff has done some feasibility studies and once we've had an opportunity to domestically go see one or two and start to gather our thoughts a little bit. I think at that time, it might be appropriate to say, you know, we're ready to go look overseas. But I would kind of put a pause on the overseas stuff until we kind of get to that point. Because we'll also have some opportunities to engage with the public between now and then as well.
My question would be this: if you go to a winter market in domestic and you don't have plans for the international, it'll be a year's wait. That would be one thing. So it would be a year's wait before you had the opportunity.
That's fine.
I think the challenge of the U.S. markets, and as you guys know, I've had the opportunity to do both. There isn't a comparison. So traveling to the U.S. markets, I think it's important to hear and learn from what the staff has learned in their investigation. I think those are incredibly useful things. But it is not an equivalent. That is the challenge. There is not an equivalent visit in the U.S. that could provide us with, as John said, what really would it take to do what we're talking about? What really would it feel like? So I think that is the challenge. And the reality is, as you note, these things happen in 1 month out of the year. So I think that's the challenge. I don't disagree. And I will also make a comment that I had an opportunity to also speak with Scott During, and also very supportive of investigating in the feasibility of this, and would be interested also in joining a trip to do that particular work at the same time. So,
You know, Kathy, even whether we have this or not, I guess that's the primary objective. But really, I think there's so much to learn from planning and zoning, architectural integration, historic district, how do we handle that from all these historic districts? I think if you went abroad, you'd have a very full schedule. There's just so much to see in park variations over Europe, and new ideas, innovative ideas. Remember, Europe's run out of land way before we did, and they know how to utilize what land they have, and have got a lot of really great innovative ideas. And back to Chris's comment, you know, when we saw the bridge in whatever city it was a bridge to nowhere, but we came back, and Dublin, of course, took the idea and improved it and made it better, and we connected two parts of our city and ended up with a very valuable amenity. So not to say that we copy things, sometimes we innovate on what we see and take off with it. And I think, you know, it's all about new ideas. If you want to have a progressive city, you got to be out front doing the progressive things that, you know, make you a progressive city. And I was involved in this thing years ago when Columbus had it, and it probably wasn't executed to the best that it could have been. It lasted, I think, a couple years. Frank Wopes, the head of the Huntington Bank, ran it. He was a German. But, you know, hey, that's not to say that, you know, time's moved on, and, you know, this could be a happening for us, and it may not be. But, you know, I don't limit it to this particular task of seeking this out. I see a much broader opportunity to study a whole lot of other things. So I think it's a good idea.
Andy?
It's my understanding council has a history of traveling abroad. Is that accurate? So it's not out of the question. It's been done before. We're elected to lead, and we have 50,000 residents that have put us in a position to make a decision that we feel is best for the city of Dublin. If we had asked residents if the city should spend $32 million on a bridge over the river, they probably would have said no. But we know now it's more than a work of art. It's more than an award-winning bridge. It's made us a destination. It's an economic development tool. It's our job to figure those things out. So I support traveling abroad because I think it helps us think big. And as John said, he said it, not me, Performing Arts Center. If you know, we want to see what a state-of-the-art performing arts center would look like, it's not, and I'm not asking the city to pay for me to travel abroad, you guys can do it. But I think there needs to be 2 or 3 council members and staff that go, so there's a general buy-in. It's not, I saw this in France or I saw this in Germany. You have to see it for yourself and have conviction that that's the right idea for the city of Dublin. And you take that idea and you make it Dublin's.
So while you're
You know, I don't know if I agree with that because, you know, I look back on Bridge Street and I see the city council saying, you know, we got to change this city. You know, we're a suburban city of lots and we got to be progressive and we got to draw young people up here for IT, for our businesses, to support our businesses. We're going to take a risk and we're going to go do this. And it was a leadership thing. And, you know, yes, there was a lot of public support then, a lot of public meetings. We brought in consultants of every stripe that you can think of, from demographic experts to God knows what, to sort of see, you know, where we were heading. But, you know, it was a huge leadership decision to say, we're going to change our city. We're going to be like Europe. We're going to build a walkable city like we've seen in every city in Europe. And, you know, that was the mission, and that mission had a whole economic component to it to change our entire community, which it did. And yeah, it was fairly risky because we were trying to draw younger people up out of the short north to support our businesses, where they'd live up here and work in our businesses. So, you know, I think part of this, you take the first step and you lead out, and then you have what you said, all the support, you know, following you.
I think as we're doing that work, we can do that public engagement at the same time. And that's what this city has done very, very well. So I think we're saying the same thing, just maybe with some different.
Yeah, and the bottom line of this, we may not come home with a Christmas market, but we may come home with a lot of other ideas that will change this community and move it along, because, you know, there's just so much overseas that, I always say that, you know, Europe got bombed extensively during the war, and then he had to come back with new urban ideas for their cities, and they rebuilt hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cities with all very clever ideas. And, you know, that's really, I think, what we want to come back with and see, hey, you know, we've learned this about zoning, we learned this about historic districts, and, you know, that's where I think, you know, the benefit is, not maybe just, you know, doing a Christmas market, but the idea of going out and see what else is going on in the world that's really progressive. And we always want to be the cutting edge city. I mean, let's be honest, this is why we're here and why we enjoy this job.
I'm hearing some consensus that we do believe that the staff should do the feasibility study. I'm also hearing consensus that we need some more understanding of communicating this with the public. And the other question that was on here, and I think it's one that maybe we can really address, is that considering the support of a trip might be something we do, as we've mentioned, after we complete part of the feasibility study. We gain a little bit from communications on what get a little information out there to the public about the possibility of this, kind of get a response, come back and revisit the international. Come back, and this was after the conclusion of a feasibility study. Dana, do you have a suggestion on how to address this one? Because we want to make sure timing is right if going abroad to see this is something that this council would like to do.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to clarify the guidance here. So let me just level set on a couple things. Just want to set some terms kind of straight. So traveling abroad. So what has the city done relative to that? So in the past, the city has been aggressive in our economic development strategy about engaging overseas. And we typically do that in partnership with Jobs Ohio, One Columbus. We have not been shy about sending our staff and council overseas to do economic engagement. Have had multiple trips to Japan in pursuit of Japanese-related companies. We've been to Europe with both Jobs Ohio, One Columbus. So that is a past practice. We've also had our friendship city engagements, of which city council, namely mayor and or vice mayor, has traveled to friendship cities. The one in Japan on multiple occasions, going back several mayors, and then more recently to Dublin, Ireland. In fact, it is in our budget to do that this year. The Midwest Japanese American Conference, I believe, is in the U.S. this year, so we probably will not do that. However, I'm going to be strongly encouraging council to go engage in Dublin, Ireland, as our friendship city agreement is up, and as soon as the new Lord Mayor is determined within the next month, then we probably should be, because of COVID, we need to pick up the pace and about the re-engagement of that. So that is budgeted. It is in the budget for this year. And you all have made this point very well, and that is that this city has had a long history of benchmarking. Now, we do that in a lot of ways. You know, we do conferences. We have all of our professional staff are engaged in their professional associations like the American Planning Association, International City County Manager Association, the Public Works Association, Fleet, and the list goes on, as well as your involvement in National League of Cities or U.S. Conference of Mayors. And oftentimes involved in those conferences are mobile workshops, benchmarking sessions that we take part in. And the other thing I would say is I think generally speaking, yourselves and your staff are pretty well traveled. I think many of us have been around the world more than once. And so I think we bring a lot of that cultural awareness back to the city and experiences no matter where we travel. And we talk about those things. So we're constantly benchmarking. The city is benchmarked. The Dublin Link Bridge, frankly, was a benchmark. I hate to admit it, but we borrowed the idea pretty much off of Greenville, North Carolina. As others, we've benchmarked on sports complexes, and I think we're going to continue to do that based on some guidance of council in your recent retreat. So yeah, so this really, if you narrow all that down, this comes down to, you know, are you interested in a holiday market? Are you interested in knowing enough about it? How much is enough to know? And should you benchmark off of those who invented it, which is in Europe, and there's probably 2 or 3 over there that probably, if you're really going to take that seriously as a proposal, you should probably check out. And who does that? I don't know. I mean, that's about the budget process. So we're not budgeted for that currently. It's not to say we couldn't find dollars, be it travel training, that we have to do that if you wanted to do that in a timely way this year. So I just want to lay that background. Would encourage you to consider that level of benchmarking if you're going to take something like this on, or you're interested in taking something like this on and you want to know enough about it. I agree completely. The domestic markets are probably a good start, but by the time you go through that, you will have missed the European example. So is the idea to garner information from both in this 1 year and then assess that, you know, relative to your budget for next year, because you're not going to probably approach this until 2024, frankly, but you got to do your homework now. And that's back to the lead time that it takes to get into these things. So I apologize if it sounded like a lecture, but I wanted to level set some of the, and also I will just say this out loud. These things aren't fun. They sound fun, but they're not. They've been on a number of these in my career and even in my military career, traveling around the world doing stuff. that are conferences and benchmarking and exercise. It's not fun. So it's not traveling abroad. It's going out and engaging, whether it's domestic or abroad, to get the information that you need and get back here and get on with your decision making. So I would advocate, if you're serious, I think the question number one is, are you serious enough about the holiday market to do the appropriate benchmarking? And I would recommend that if you're going to at least be serious enough to research it, that you do both, not one or the other. That would be my recommendation. And we would need that guidance. You don't have to do it tonight, but we would need it fairly soon. And I'd also like to have it relative to preparing operating budget for the next year, if that's something that was not going to take place this year.
All right. Well, I appreciate that information. I think that's very helpful. That is the discussion question that Allison asked us to answer tonight. I think we'll do this in two motions. A motion to approve the staff having the staff do the feasibility study. May I have a motion for staff doing the feasibility study for the winter market? Do I have a second?
Second.
Jenny, will you please call roll?
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Second, I would like a motion. Is there a motion to support both a domestic and an international trip to study the winter market? May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to do both domestic and international trip to study feasibility of holiday markets.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Jenny, will you please call roll?
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
These two are tied together, right? So I support looking at the feasibility. You know, it's hard to say whether or not you can do if this were to cost, we wouldn't even know what it would cost. I would like to see staff come back with some sort of outline. If we were to put on a holiday market such as this, these are the budget numbers that it would require in the budget. And our cost recovery, if we stayed at the 25, 26%, whatever that number is, to know what it is, what we're looking at. What are those numbers? And if we talked about those numbers and we felt comfortable with them and good about them, I would be fully supportive of domestic and international trip to pursue those things. But to pursue the end without knowing, you know, is this something we can execute on?
What you're voting on is, do we go out and collect the data to answer the questions, both domestic and international, to answer the questions you just said? That's the motion on the table.
So I support the gathering of that data.
I think we need to clarify. We need to clarify the vote. Jennifer, could you, pardon?
Yeah, we're calling roll call, so we need a yes or no vote on that.
Yes.
Mr. Reiner? Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo? Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
No.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Thank you, Allison. Our next item on the agenda is the general fund balance utilization from the American Rescue Plan funding. And Matt is back.
Mayor, if you don't mind, while Matt's kind of setting up here, this is in reference to your discussion at your annual retreat and the potential distribution of the equivalent of $5.2 million, which really came to us in the form of ARPA, but we have spent the ARPA dollars in another way. That's what Matt's going to explain. But I can certainly weigh back in on the recommendation of the distribution, and that's That's just a straw man proposal that I hope you'll consider, and I'm certainly will answer any questions you might have about the proposed distribution itself.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Dana. Good evening, members of council. At the March 17th retreat of City Council, staff presented a path forward to minimize audit risk and maximize flexibility regarding the American Rescue Plan, or ARPA funds. That strategy involved using the ARPA funds to pay for public safety-related expenditures and then reducing the transfer from the general fund for the safety to the safety fund, making that funding available for reappropriation without increasing general fund expenditures. This allows funding of $5.2 million to be available for appropriation. At retreat, council indicated their support for this course of action, and that was executed in the first quarter supplemental ordinance 04-22. Council also requested at that time that staff identify funding levels for a future discussion based on the ideas that were presented at that retreat of both council members and staff members. This memo is in response to that request to put some numbers to the ideas that were presented, and with your approval tonight of those numbers, this information can be brought forward in a forthcoming supplemental ordinance to be appropriated. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Oh, we have any public comment on this, Lindsay? All right. Council, discussion? Andy?
I would only make the comment that I'd support the $3 million for the rec center is a great starting point, but I'd be in support of increasing that here over the next few years. I think we're lacking a bit in that area, and the rec center could use this more than a refresh, some additions and expansions and that kind of thing.
I would agree with Andy on that. I think that we probably have some hard looks to give at recreational facilities.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Matt, for your work on this. Couple things that I really appreciate about this recommendation is, one, it has such a broad scope across organizations that really are doing fundamental things that'll have longevity, like the rec center, that really serve a broad group. And I appreciate that work, and I think the efforts here to work with the organizations, not only to raise the funds, but to help support other matching funds as it can work out that way, I think is a great use of the funds, and I appreciate the distribution and support that. Thank you.
Other comments? John?
No, I get it, and I think it's a good program.
Just for the public's information too, and I know some of this is not always easily visible, but this ARP funding, I think it's important for the public to understand that good portions of this benefit the community holistically and comprehensively. And I'll just, if you don't mind for me taking just a minute to run down that list that are going to be opportunities for the community to benefit from this money. A social worker, Dublin Arts Council's building improvements, Art in Public Places, Dublin Art Council, Visit Dublin, Ohio, Dublin Food Pantry, Dublin Bridges, the Dublin Food Pantry Building Fund, the Dublin Community Foundation Grant, Centero, Downtown Coordination for Groups and Benefits, a Council of Governments, and Dublin Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Dublin Community Recreation Center. I think all of these, it's important to say that this funding is going to benefit the community in a variety of ways, and so just wanted to take a moment to do that. Is there any other discussion from council on this? So do I have a motion to direct staff to proceed with bringing forward legislation as we discussed?
So moved.
And may I have a second? Thank you. Jenny, will you please call roll?
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner? Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Soludo?
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Dina, you have staff comments?
Only one comment this evening, members of council. So in celebration of Bike Month during May, Staff's organized a bike rodeo event that's going to take place on Saturday, May 14th, between 10 a.m. and noon at the Darby Street Lot in historic Dublin. So the parking lot will be closed during the event, but will open for the afternoon and evening hours. The focus of the rodeo is to educate the community on safety while riding a bicycle and other micro-mobility devices. So attendees will have an opportunity to rotate through several safety check-ins for proper helmet and bike fitting, as well as a safety course with support from Dublin Police. The Dublin Bike Ambassadors, local bike shops, Bird Scooters, and Kogo Bike Share will also have a presence at the event. So there'll be some music and a food truck. You can't do this sort of thing without a little bit of celebration, so all that'll be there. Hope folks will come out, and so we did send letters to nearby businesses for their awareness that may be impacted that morning, but hopefully the community will come out and take part in that. We'll certainly invite them to. Thank you.
Thank you. Council reports, Administrative Committee.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Community Development Committee.
Our meeting will not happen next week. I think we've caught up with everything. Thank you.
Public Services Committee.
We're actually moving our meeting till next week, Monday, right before council meeting.
All right, thank you. Council Roundtable. Andy?
So we just went over the art funds and we saw that the Dublin Chamber received $50,000. I want to commend them on their excellent work this weekend. I saw Megan and her two little girls volunteering at Community Service Day. I really don't think they got any dirt on their hands. I mean, they were like dressed to the nines, looked amazing. But anyway, not to call you out or anything, I just want to give a lot of credit to the Chamber. You know, I think Chamber of Commerce, I think business, attracting business, supporting business. They supported the community on Saturday. Wasn't the best weather, but I think the Amoros family and a good number of limbs of their family tree were in representation there, doing a great job. So good time had by all on that, helping the community. And then tonight we had a bit of a fire drill. Councilmember Cram is with us virtually. And I just think it's important that we test these systems from time to time. We never know when a disaster would strike, and it's important that we have continuity of government. So glad you could join us and hope you feel better.
Yeah, last meeting we discussed the different art exhibits that are coming up, and I want to introduce you to the guided nature walks. So the next one is May 17th from the Dublin Arts Council. It's 4 to 5, and it's an hour of discovery, and it's guided by an artist, and you're going to see nature's patterns. So the new series, Dublin Arts Council, is always doing something innovative and clever, so they just got to keep it up. Thank you.
All right.
I wanted to let you all know this Friday is the dodgeball tournament you all signed up for, so loosen up. I will be forwarding you an email tomorrow. We will meet at the stadium at 6:30 on Friday night, and we will be well prepared to go down in flames to whoever our opponent is, because I don't think that we stand much of a chance, but we'll go down fighting, that's for sure. Want to thank the Leadership Dublin project team that's working on childcare initiatives in the city, and a few of us had the opportunity to meet with them on the 27th. And you know, it's really heartwarming when you see these leadership groups take on these initiatives and really work hard and try to do the good work to make Dublin a better place to live and to do business and to play. So thank you, Chief, for doing the drug take back day on the 30th. Hopefully we took lots of things off of people's shelves that could harm folks. You may have heard this week from MORPC about the Rapid 5 announcement, and so MORPC is going to be the conduit for the $2 million seed money from the Columbus Foundation to start the Rapid 5 initiative, and they hired Dr. Amy Acton to be the director of that. So wanted to give you a little heads up on that. I think we'll be seeing more and more traction on that in the near term. I would encourage you all to look at the outcome of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on the 5th. They had some great dialogues, and there were some interesting projects come forward, and I think it's worth a look. And I too would like to thank the Chamber for Community Service Day. I know my boys, they were excited to do it, and they went and mulched this little dear lady's house, and it was funny. We were sitting at dinner that night, and they were like, she thought those bags of mulch were so heavy. They weren't even that heavy. The kind we get is heavier than that. And so it's really fun to see. I don't know how many folks came, but I'm going to guess it was in excess of 250 people came out and volunteered to serve their neighbors that didn't have the opportunity to help themselves. So thanks for that. I would like to congratulate State Rep Beth Liston. She received a COSI STEM Award on Saturday, and certainly it would have been nice to be able to be with her to help her celebrate that, but we had Community Service Day planned. I also did reach out to Senator Coonsey, both Representatives Richardson and Liston, about House Bill 563. I think that's very detrimental. We spent a lot of time, and our residents spent a lot of energy on talking about short-term rentals in neighborhood communities. So I think we have some good partners there. If I do have some backdrop information that I won't go through all of that tonight, but if you're interested, I'm happy to discuss that. And it's good to know that we do have 3 good advocates in that space on our behalf. And just wanted to let you know that we have a follow-up meeting. I have a follow-up meeting with the Lieutenant Governor tomorrow about our workforce development initiatives, and I'll bring back information following that meeting. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cram, virtually, your seat is empty, but we know you're there. So do you have anything to share at Roundtable?
I just want to thank Ms. Delgado and staff for organizing the remote participation. Overall, it seems to be working fairly well with just a few minor glitches. So thank you to them for doing that.
Thank you. Councilman DeRosa.
Thank you. The only thing I'll add is that it's a absolutely gorgeous spring day, and I want to thank all of our Parks and Rec team and our grounds group and everyone, the engineering group that make our path so wonderful. I was out today, and it's spectacular, and this is why we live here. So thanks very much, and enjoy Bike Month. Thank you.
I just want to give a shout out to the students, and I believe it's Indian Run, the Davis Cabin that is located by the post office on Corbin's Mill Road, Corbin's Mill, was turned into a living history museum a couple of days last week, and I think it's going to stay that way. These children, along with the Dublin Historic Society and I think the Dublin Arts Council, they organized a historical lesson for all of us to make the Davis Cabin come alive. They collected items. They turned the cabin into a living museum. They collected donations for the Nick Rosansky Memorial Foundation and Honor Flight Columbus. They had quite a few people come and visit it. They taught you how to make all kinds of things. They had the most interesting posters up that shows what let's say, a bathroom looked like in 1830s and what it looks like today. And they would compare these things, what a lamp looked like in 1830s and what it looked like today. What a game for children looked like in 1830s and what it looked like today. It was alive with all this exciting interest by these students playing these 1830 games and understanding where we've come from. And I just want to put a shout out to their teacher, Katie Gill. She did amazing things, and I think that, and I have some pictures, so if communications would ever like to put those on the website, I think it would be fun and fascinating. So other than that, I would call this meeting adjourned, and thank you all.